Hello and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you wherever you are in the world, and thank you for joining us in the latest of our series of Dux-Soup webinars. My name is Giles. I'm head of professional services here at Dux-Soup, and very shortly, hopefully, we'll be hearing from Beth, who's from the marketing team and is helping out on the webinar today. Are you there, Beth? Are you back online?
I am back online. My internet connection suddenly dropped off at just the worst possible time. Sorry about that. Can you hear me? Yeah?
I'll hand back to Beth to do the introduction then.
Perfect. Well, hello everyone and welcome to today's Dux-Soup session. Thank you for taking the time to join us. We've got a really popular topic today with some great tips on how to grow your LinkedIn network and start generating leads with LinkedIn automation. But first, let me do some introductions. So I'm just going to turn my camera on and hopefully that will sustain that now. So hi everyone, I'm Beth Baxter and I work with the marketing team at Dux-Soup. I actually became a Dux-Soup affiliate back in 2020, and since then I've gone on to use and recommend Dux-Soup across many businesses, and I think it's a real game changer. With me today is Giles Garnett, our head of professional services, and Giles is actually away on holiday at the moment, so a big thank you to Giles for giving up your time to be with us today. Now, what Giles doesn't know about Dux-Soup isn't worth knowing. He runs all of our training and booster sessions, so if you ever need any one-to-one help, you can book training sessions via the website. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Dux-Soup, it's a LinkedIn automation tool that can massively reduce your time spent on more manual LinkedIn activities. So from simple actions like sending connection requests and messages to more advanced drip campaigns, Dux-Soup can automate all of this for you. So if you've not used it before, head over to the website and get yourself a free trial. Now, today we're going to explore some of the fundamentals of growing your LinkedIn network and how to automate this process with Dux-Soup. So I'm going to hand over to Giles, but before I do, just a couple of quick housekeeping points. Everyone will be on mute throughout the session. If you have a question, we'd love to hear from you. So just pop it in the questions box, which I'll be monitoring, and then we can cover off all relevant questions in the Q&A at the end. Now, a recording will also be sent to you after the webinar has finished. So without further ado, over to you, Giles.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Beth. And as always, welcome to everybody today. So yeah, as Beth just stated, we're going to be looking at some crucial steps for getting your lead generation activities on LinkedIn kick-started, and it's suitable for all Dux-Soup users. So that's beginners, absolute, new installs or whatever, pro users and turbo users. So hopefully there's something in here for everybody. As mentioned just then by Beth, she'll be monitoring the questions box, so keep those coming in. If you've got other questions, you can go to our support portal, which the link is there on the page now, or the email address that you see there. Your other questions can go to those places if it's not relevant for this webinar. Right, let's kick on because I'd like to cover quite a lot of stuff today, and I don't want to make it too long. So when you're thinking about the possibilities of using any LinkedIn automation tool, it's very easy to fall into a trap and of thinking that you'll be able to do a few clicks of the mouse and the magic will happen. And you can just do everything at 100 miles an hour. Now, we do see this occasionally, and it's something we do warn people about. So if you're thinking about using automation on LinkedIn, consider this, and we'll be covering a lot of this during my top tips. Have a target. What are you trying to achieve? Who are you trying to target? What timescales do you have? What data is important to you? And do you have certain key data or systems that you want to integrate into your process? Manage your own expectations. Be prepared to invest time and have a clear strategy. Research your personas, research the people that you're targeting, and make sure that your strategies are consistent and that you have measuring points. You can then measure the success or failure of whatever you're doing. And this is sort of some general advice, really. And what we're going to cover today is my top tips. So doing your research. We're going to be talking through very briefly how you install Dux-Soup if you've not done so already. I'll touch on your perfect LinkedIn profile, and then about having a strategy, and then what you need to spend your time over, finding your target audience, and then also your messaging. And one thing to be aware of, and we'll cover this quite early on, is be aware of all the options available. It's not just about sending connection requests, it's not just about messaging, it's about increasing your visibility on the LinkedIn platform. making sure that people are aware of you and what you do. And it's a combination of all of these things that you need to sort of unscramble and sort of come up with your own personal strategy. There is no one size fits all for this. So yeah, you need to put your own personal spin on these things. Okay, first of all, how to install Dux-Soup. You go to the Chrome Web Store or our homepage. For new users, you get a free 14-day trial of Turbo, and there's pop-up guides to help you through the process. Whenever you install Dux-Soup first time, you get the pop-ups on the right-hand side, how-tos and so and so. We've got a massive YouTube library and a huge number of blogs and guides available, and of course our support portal there. So you've got all of that information there to support you, as well as the team behind the screen, as it were. So this is how you do it. We'll very quickly touch on this when I do the demo bit of the webinar a little bit later, but I'll go through the slides first. Okay, so once we've installed Dux-Soup, you need to make sure that you're, well, even before you install Dux-Soup, this should be lead generation 101 really. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date and relevant. Make it relevant to your target audience. Have a good, up-to-date professional picture. I think a few weeks ago, when at the turn of the year, we had Adam, our head of marketing, talked about doing A/B testing with your pictures and making sure that your profile is looking good, it's looking relevant and professional. We had a fantastic webinar on the 24th of January from Tracy, talking all about all the new features that are coming to LinkedIn as well, and how to create the perfect profile. So I'm not going to spend too long on that, but pay attention to it, put some effort in here. And there goes my chair. I knew that was going to happen. That's what happens when you're in a place where you're not usually located. So yeah, make sure that your LinkedIn profile is up to date. It's your advert to the world. So make sure that you spend time on that. To build a strategy, when it comes to lead generation, you need to have a goal or objective. What are your goals? To achieve so many new connections per week, so many responses per month, or maybe so many more customers per year. You need to be aware of what Dux-Soup can do for you in order to achieve all of this. So you've got to try and join up all of the dots. Are you using Dux-Soup Pro, in which case you've got, the simple 1 actions per visit? Or are you a turbo user? Are you building campaigns? As you develop your strategy, do take into consideration what LinkedIn will allow you to do on their platform. We've got a fantastically useful blog post which goes through what you will and will not be able to do from LinkedIn, depending on what your starting point is. You can see the link there, and hopefully Beth's able to share that with you in the chat box. I think the chat is like the broadcasting message facility rather than the questions box. So all of the URLs hopefully will be available there. This is a really useful blog post which outlines how you use LinkedIn automation safely and what you should be aware about other limits. I don't want to spend too much time on that because the whole thing around LinkedIn limits is an entire webinar on its own. But be aware of that and build that in, factor that into what you're trying to do. So once we've got, think about your strategy, think about what steps you can automate through Dux-Soup. Now think about what's in Pro and what's in Turbo. Be aware of what's possible. If you just want to visit hundreds of profiles, you can do that with both Dux-Soup Pro and Dux-Soup Turbo. You can get, if you've got a paid LinkedIn account, you can visit hundreds of profiles a day. If your permissions are set correctly, everyone will see that you visited them. They'll get a notification. Visit and Connect, Pro and Turbo. If you want to use the campaigns, or that's connection request campaigns or first degree outreach, you need Dux-Soup Turbo. And then you've got the one-time direct messages or in-mails where you can use Pro or Turbo. Remember, in-mails are only available if you've got a premium account in LinkedIn. That's, I think, SalesNav or Recruiter. And then, of course, if you want to integrate your data, so if you want your LinkedIn and Dux-Soup related data to appear somewhere else automatically, you will need Dux-Soup Turbo in order to achieve that. So always be aware of what's possible. I mean, I've just pulled out here the highlights of what Dux-Soup can do. Of course, I've not mentioned here, for example, auto following profiles or endorsing profiles, saving to your lead lists, those sorts of things as well. All of these can sort of help you to build up your lead generation strategies accordingly. And then we need to talk about the things that take time. You must find must spend time up front finding your targets. I've done entire webinars on this process, and we've got blog posts as well. In fact, there's one there mentioned there at the bottom of the page. The whole search criteria in Sales Navigator, in regular LinkedIn, and in Recruiter, yeah, there's a huge amount to use there to help you filter. Don't forget to use Boolean search terms. If you look at that blog post that I've linked on there, you can read about Boolean search terms from a high level, and then you can adapt that to what you require. We'll try and touch on that during the demo as well. Be aware of the different lists in LinkedIn that you can use. So whether it's a list of people who like to post, or maybe it's a list of group members, or maybe it's people who viewed your profile. Again, if you go to our blog posts and look up lists, there's an entire blog on all the different lists that you can use in LinkedIn. And we're always looking at ways to possibly extend that portfolio, if you like. Create lead lists in Sales Navigator. You can save people to a lead list, and then once you've created your lead list, run your Dux-Soup actions against that lead list. It's very, very useful, a very powerful way to sort of construct your outreach. I mean, we could even go down the rabbit hole of creating custom lists as well. Probably don't have time today, but custom lists as well, creating a CSV file of your targets. As long as you've got the LinkedIn URL, then you can create a CSV list of the people that you want to reach out to. The higher quality that your list is, the more success you will have. And the more success you will have, if you read our previous blog on keeping your account safe, the more success you have, the more you will be able to do on LinkedIn going forward. So think about dedicate time to defining who the personas are that you want to target. You know them better than anyone else. You work in the industry, you work in the region, you work in the locations. So you're familiar with the cultural norms around those particular groups of people. So a lot of people ask me, oh, well, what's the ideal way to do this? I said, where do you live? What industry do you work in? Who are you trying to target? Then you can start to piece it together. Every different audience will have different norms, as it were. Messaging, again, topic for an entire webinar. Once you've found your list of targets, you need to think about what your messaging strategy is. And to be honest, there are a few simple rules you need to follow. So whatever messaging you're using, whether that's connection requests or direct first degree messages, or even in-mails, make use of the _FN_ or perhaps _LN_ for first name and last name, where appropriate, to make your message look genuine. As it says there, you want the target to believe you've genuinely found their profile, and while manually browsing LinkedIn and were motivated to reach out to them. Right, therefore, you need to compose your message in such a way that it looks like you've taken time to look for those targets. Link it to how you found them. Look at the search criteria you've used, whether that's location related or industry related or whatever it may be. People are easily flattered. And if they believe that you've taken time and pulled them out, then there's a greater chance that they will engage with you one way or another, of course. And then the same goes for your campaign messaging. Make sure it's following a theme. And be clear of what your aim is. What are you trying to achieve? Think about when you get an invite from someone. I think I've got another slide on this. Yeah, there we go. Think about when you get an invite from someone you don't know. What's the first thing you want them to do? You want them to visit your profile page. So that's your advert. We referred to that earlier. And then you probably want them to engage back with you to continue a genuine, hopefully, as opposed to automated conversation, and ultimately convert that prospect into a lead. Use open questions to prompt a response. Even if it's a no thank you, at least you've got clear identification. You can focus your efforts elsewhere. Now, another piece of advice, which I cannot reiterate it enough, and I see this all the time: do not send 3, 4, 5 messages in quick succession, because it just looks automated, and in many cases, just, there's no other word for it, pretty awful, to be honest. Think about your targets. Think about the people you're reaching out to. Are they on LinkedIn every day? There are many casual users of LinkedIn, and they're perhaps checking in once or twice every couple of weeks. If those people accept your invite to connect, and then the next time they go into LinkedIn, there are 3, 4, 5 messages waiting for them, they're most likely to just get labeled as spam. to be honest. So you really want to avoid that. Give your prospects time to digest messages and time to reflect and time to visit your profile. And personally, I always try and leave at least a week between my outreach actions, with the aim that my name will periodically appear in their mailbox or in their notifications. I get so many people asking me, well, what's the ideal cadence or timings for an outreach? There is no ideal one, and it all depends on your personal views. But you know, we'll come to some examples or an example during the demo section in a second. But yeah, think about the timing and always make it last longer than you think. I see so many example campaigns where a message is going out after 3 days and then another one a day later, another one a day later. And remember, they're only going to receive those subsequent messages if they've not replied. Remember, that's the default setting on LinkedIn Turbo. Sorry, on Dux-Soup Turbo, LinkedIn. So yeah, make sure that you are giving time for your prospects to digest your messages and react. Some couple of other tips that I just want to mention before we get to doing the demo then. And this one I talked about again at the turn of the year when we did our sort of year review. Send more emails. Make use, if you've got a premium account, if you've got Sales Navigator or Recruiter, make sure you use this feature. We did an entire webinar on this last year, I think in April or May, I think it was. The blog post is there. Hopefully we can put that and make that available to people who want it. Make use of your in-mails. This is over and above your regular in-mail credits that you get if you've got a paid LinkedIn account. You can really, really leverage a huge amount more traction if you can use this facility. So don't be afraid to use this. I know a huge number of people for whom this has been a massive eye-opener and has been incredibly successful. And then the last thing I just want to mention before we get to demo is visit. You're out of invites, you're out of in-mails, need to vary your strategy. Do not be afraid to just visit profiles. Make sure you're visible, that you're visiting profiles, because every visit you get Dux-Soup to do, of course, they'll get a notification you visited them and you'll get their data. Dux-Soup will gather their data for you, which you can then later download. So those are the other couple of tips that I wanted to mention there. So without further ado, let's see, here we go. Right, onto a demo. Hopefully everyone can see now my LinkedIn homepage. And before I go any further, let's just go to my profile here. This is me on LinkedIn. Please feel free to send me a connection request. I know lots and lots of you already have, but if you haven't, then please do. I'm very happy to connect with Dux-Soup users. Just put Dux-Soup in your connection request or mention Dux-Soup, because then I know how you found me. And I'm always quicker to respond to those that mention Dux-Soup. So do mention that if you are reaching out. Okay, so how do we install Dux-Soup if we've not yet got it? We go to the Chrome Web Store. There we go. And I've already installed mine here. I'll just make that appear. There we go. That's better. Sorry, I got some of the webinar tools in the way. There we go. So you would go to the Chrome Web Store, just look up Dux-Soup and you can install it. And it gets installed against your Chrome login, your Google Chrome login. And of course, we've got various articles about how you can create a new Chrome login if you're running multiple accounts, etc., etc. Just have a look at our blog posts for that. Once you've installed Dux-Soup and you've updated your profile, so it's all looking up to date and smart and everything, first thing we want to do then is carry out a search. We want to create a list. So we're going to just go into our search box here, and maybe we're just going to type in here, I don't know, operations manager. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking for a list of people that Dux-Soup will recognize. I'm going to have to go to a people list if I'm going to search. And we'll just show you a couple of examples here. So here I've just done a very quick search, and I'm just going to make sure that we're changing this, because if I'm wanting to reach out to these people, I would want to not be reaching out to first degree connections if I'm looking to grow my network. Remember, there are limitations around LinkedIn searches. So in regular LinkedIn, you only see the first 1,000 results of each search. Once we've got our search here on the page, and once all of everything's happened, there we go, Dux-Soup turns green and says, at your service. Now, if I was a pro user, my options here would be, and we'll click on the icon here, I could get Dux-Soup to auto visit the profiles. I could do visit and connect, or I could do scan. We're not going to touch scan for today. We'll talk about that another time. Visit profiles or visit and connect are the two most common. And if we want to get Dux-Soup to carry out other actions during that visit, we can click on our Dux-Soup options here, and we can enable some of our options here. So we can get Dux-Soup to include a personalized connection request if we want to, adhering to LinkedIn's 300-character limit. And we have various other options here as well. We could follow a profile if we're visiting them in standard LinkedIn. We could, we could tag them. We can use Dux-Soup tags to label them so we knew how we found them. All sorts of different automated action options here. And in order to get that going, all I would do is I'd set up my options here, go back to my list, and I would click, maybe it would be visit and connect, and I'd be sending connection requests. And then Dux-Soup will start at the top of the page and work its way through following my throttling rules. Not going to spend time on that today. You can read the blog post on that and understand how the throttling works. But basically, Dux-Soup will follow your throttling rules. If you, for example, are sending out 40 invites a day, it'll start at the top and it'll run through and hit 40 profiles. If we have turbo, of course, what we can do then is we've got a list such as this. We can click on our Dux-Soup icon and we can enroll profiles into a campaign. Rather than doing that from here, how about we go into to Sales Navigator just to show you how that works in a slightly different environment. Of course, in Sales Navigator, the search works in a very similar way. You've got more filters, of course. And don't forget, you can use Boolean search terms in these search boxes as well, both in the regular LinkedIn and in Sales Navigator. So for example, I could put here operations and manager, and then maybe not director. So I could use this as, for example, a way to search for people in Sales Navigator or in regular LinkedIn. But this way I can include and exclude certain keywords. Again, I would probably narrow this down to second or third degree connections. Again, Dux-Soup says at your service. And if I'm in a search result and I've got turbo, I've got a couple of options. I can click here on my little widget here, and I can select who I want to go into whichever campaign, or again, I can bulk enroll. And bulk enrolling involves clicking the enroll profiles button, select whichever campaign it is, and then select how many people you want to enroll. The number of people you want to enroll will then queue up a whole bunch of actions, be that connection requests or whatever. Remember, Dux-Soup will still adhere to your daily limits, your throttling limits. So that's how we can enroll people. How do we set up a campaign if we're just starting out with Dux-Soup? Well, we click on our Dux-Soup icon and we go down to our Dux dash down here in the bottom right-hand corner. And now I need to move all the controls around again because everything's blocking what I can see. There we go, that's better. So here we go into our Dux dashboard, if you like. And what we have here on the left-hand side is all our options to enable us to build and manage our campaigns. If I go to my drip campaigns here, I'm going to take my webinar demo campaign here. What I've got here is I've got a campaign that I use for talking through examples. And what I have here is a very simple campaign which includes 11 items, 11 steps, as it were. So if I enrolled a second or third degree connection into this campaign, the first thing that would happen is they would get my connection request. So here I've got hi space underscore FN underscore, pulling out their first name. I see you have an interest in growth hacking, and I thought it would be nice to connect. So this is a very low-key, neutral connection request, and I use this to send out to people who are a member of a growth hacking community on LinkedIn. So what I have here is my connection request, and then Dux-Soup will then, if I enroll somebody, it will send out this connection request as and when that queued item gets ready to be processed. Dux-Soup will then listen for when they accept, and at the moment that they accept, my follow-up actions will be queued up. So 3 days after connecting, they'll get my thanks for connecting. Hope we can exchange ideas in the future. Then I'm giving it time. I'm leaving them to sit for a week, and I'm just going to get Dux-Soup to auto-visit them after 10 days. So a week later, I'm getting them to auto-visit. And then a couple of days after that, I've got another message going out. And then 6 days after that, another message, and so on and so forth. You can see here, the cadence is pretty extended. I mean, you could extend this even more, but remember, if they respond to me after follow-up number 2 here, they're not going to get follow-ups 3, 4, 5, and 6 unless I intervene. hopefully that will then get me into a direct conversation with them anyway. If they respond to me, I can then actually engage with them genuinely. What we're doing here is basically giving ourselves the best chance of getting a positive engagement, hopefully through the messaging and the auto visits. Now, I'm not using, you can add and remove steps to your campaigns here. So I could also add, for example, an endorsement activity here. And that would get Dux-Soup to auto endorse a skill of theirs. Maybe I want to set that up to go up for, I don't know, 130 days afterwards. If they've not engaged with me, there we go. So I've now populated all 12 steps of my campaign here. So if they've not responded to me after 110 days or whatever it may be, they're going to then I'm going to endorse one of their skills. Maybe that's my last sort of throw of the dice. But I could then also put them into another campaign because they've connected with me at this stage once they're getting the follow-up messages. So I can put them into another campaign if I want them to get further messages. So you build a campaign like this, very straightforward, very intuitive, hopefully. Yeah, you can really extend out your possibilities. So we go back to our search result here. If I wanted to put somebody into that campaign, I would click up here, I click enroll campaigns, select whichever campaign, so if it was webinar demo, and then I could say, yeah, maybe I want to queue up. Well, I think I'm sending out 35 invites a day at the moment. So if I wanted to queue up 2 days worth, I could put 70 here, press the OK button, and then Dux-Soup will take the first 70 people who've not been enrolled into this campaign before, and it will send them that, it will enroll them into that campaign, put those connection requests to go out there. As I say, we've not touched on the throttling side of things today because of the amount of time we've got, but that's how you can do that. It's as simple as that. Little bit of a preview for you as well. Coming up in the next week or so, we are going to be releasing a slightly simplified UI. So all of the options that you currently have available through the UI, I mean, we do understand that for some users, there's quite a lot of information in here. There's quite a lot of things to take in and lots of different settings that you can play around with. We are going to be releasing a simplified version of the UI for new installs, but you still have the option to enable the advanced view as well. So that's something that we've been looking at and looking to support, because we're aware that that's something that users have requested quite a lot. So keep an eye out for that coming in the next week or so. It depends on a couple of little things that we need to finish off. But yeah, we're looking at the next week to 10 days for that to be released. And yeah, what you'll find is then actually that this drop-down menu here will become a little bit simpler, depending on which version you've got, whether it's Pro or Turbo. And then, yeah, hopefully that will make things a little bit more intuitive for people as well. That's everything I wanted to cover today, but hopefully while I've been talking, lots of you have got some questions in, so I can delve into a few more bits and pieces. I did mention lead lists earlier, so just one last thing before we go to the questions. I'm giving you time to put the questions in now and for Beth to organise herself. If I go to my lead lists here, so you can generate your lead lists either automatically or you can save people to a lead list. What we have here, I've got some lead lists here. If I take this one here, for example, there's enough information on this page here for Dux-Soup to recognize this as a list. What we just wait for is Dux-Soup to say at your service, and then I can run my chosen automation from here. There is a slight difference from a search result here insofar as I don't get the widget appear at the side, but I can do my enrollment action from here and a couple of the other lists as well that I mentioned earlier. So for example, we've got our search result here in regular LinkedIn. If I want to go and maybe there's a post that a whole load of people have liked, this one here maybe, I can run Dux-Soup against this list. I can run it against an alumni list. I can run it against a list of employees or page followers. That's another one as well. Anywhere where the Dux-Soup icon turns green and Dux says at your service, you can run Dux-Soup from there. And we'll talk about custom lists another day because I'm just conscious of time. Beth, do we have any questions?
We have quite a lot of questions actually, Giles. I'm just trying to work out which are the best ones to go through. So let's just start with some of the earlier ones. So per day, what is the limitation to connecting through campaigns? I think they're talking about limits in terms of numbers.
Yeah, okay. So if you've not used LinkedIn automation before, and I refer you back to the blog post that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we always recommend starting at sort of 25 to 30 connection requests a day. That's a safe limit to start at. And you can define all of this through your Dux-Soup options. So just to show you where that all is, if I click on my Dux-Soup icon and you go to your options and you go to your throttling settings, this is where you set your daily limits. Oh, mine's on 40 a day at the moment. So but always recommend starting off slowly. And the reason for this is because you don't want to raise any red flags from going, doing 0 to trying to do 100 in a day. Start at 25 or 30 per day, and then let it run for a week or two. No issues, then up it by 5. You can always change this. So you can go in here and you can change it from the drop-down list. So maybe I went back to 25. There we go. I can leave that at 25, and I can run that for a while. Now, remember, if you're targeting well, and you're sending out maybe 150 requests a week, maybe you're doing 30 a day, you're doing 150 a week. If you're targeting well and you're getting 25, 30, 40% acceptance rates, that's quite a lot of new connections to work through. Of course, the more success you have, the more you can then do. And if you read that blog post, that explains it, because there's a load of dependencies that will influence what you can and can't do. So, for example, if you've got a free account, if you have a free LinkedIn account, you'll be limited as to how many searches you can carry out and how many profiles you can view per week and per month. If you've got a paid for account, you can always do more. So that's whether it's I think they've got, it's still the Business Pro is one of the legacy accounts, or whether you've got Sales Navigator or Recruiter. If you're Sales Navigator and Recruiter, you can visit literally hundreds of profiles a day. But I would still recommend starting at the lower level with regards to connection requests. What we've seen is if you do this methodically and you do it genuinely and you get good response rates, so 25, 30% upwards, you can, the more you do, the more you can do. And it just takes time to get those numbers up and higher. So what I have seen with a paid account is that you can get up to be able to send maybe 60, 70, 80 connection requests a day without any issues at all, as long as you're being, as long as you're behaving well, as it well on the LinkedIn platform. If you're just randomly sending out hundreds of connection requests and getting a rubbish connection connection acceptance rate, you won't be able to do so much. LinkedIn will think you are just spamming people. So it's about how effectively you target people, and also don't do massive changes. Don't go from doing 0 to 60 in a day. Do those changes gradually, because you don't want to have any sort of red flags towards LinkedIn. It also has to do with, whether you've had any warnings before and that kind of stuff. Always take your time and run the robot, and this is important as well, the robot speed here at the top. I always run it at either random or at under 100 an hour. I personally never run it any faster than that, because I want, Dux-Soup is programmed and designed to mimic the clicks of the mouse on the platform. So make it look as human as possible. Remember, once you've set it all up and just let it go, you can get on with something more useful. Dux-Soup will just carry on ticking away in the background, doing all of that repetitive work that you don't have to do anymore. So that's where you can really benefit. You set it all up, you spend time, you invest time up front, and then you can leave it to go and then hopefully reap the benefits going forward.
Okay, thanks, Giles. Quick question for you. Is there a way to have drip campaign messages sent through Sales Navigator instead of standard LinkedIn, which I think you showed there that you could?
For new connections, no. And there's a whole raft of reasons why that might be. Mainly because actually we don't know what your target, nobody knows what platform your target has. Now we have in this situation, of course, whereby you have two mailboxes to manage, your regular LinkedIn mailbox and your Sales Navigator mailbox. One of the quirks of LinkedIn, once you've got a paid account, they want to tie you in. So if you want to keep access to your Sales Navigator mailbox, you've got to keep paying. No, you can queue up first degree campaigns to be sent only via Sales Navigator mailbox. And what I may have said there is possibly a little confusing for some people. Let's just go back to an example here. Let me just go to my Dux Dash. So if I go to a campaign here, for example, oh, nice hat, Beth. Sorry, I hadn't spotted that. If I go to my drip campaigns here, and I go to this one here, this campaign, which I've got just for first degree connections. So I would only put first degree connections into this campaign. If I enroll a Sales Navigator URL into this campaign, these messages will all go via Sales Navigator because they're all being queued up against the Sales Navigator URL. The default is that Dux-Soup sends it in regular LinkedIn because we don't know what your target has, and that's how it is set up at the moment. If it's something that you want the possibility to force it always to go via Sales Navigator, then please think about putting that into our feature request page. You can go to this page here, which hopefully you can see on screen. Yeah, if it's a specific requirement as to why you would want to send that out there via Sales Navigator only. But remember, we don't control where it appears. So you can send messages in Sales Navigator. If your target hasn't got Sales Navigator, the conversation is automatically going to move to your regular LinkedIn mailbox anyway. So yeah, you've just got 2 mailboxes to manage, unfortunately.
Okay, are you able to talk about a recruiter use case at all, Giles?
I can do what I can. I've got some experience in using Recruiter, yes, but I don't have a Recruiter account myself. But yeah, let's give it a whirl.
I think it means just an example of how someone's using Recruiter with Dux-Soup. That's
okay,
I think
yeah.
what they're.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're using Recruiter, there are some limitations. So what you need to be aware of is that in Recruiter, if you open a profile, a LinkedIn profile in Recruiter, you can't send a connection request in Recruiter. If you're using Recruiter, and you can check this out in our features page on the Dux-Soup homepage, if you want to invite somebody using Recruiter and Dux-Soup, actually you need Dux-Soup Turbo. You can enroll profiles from a Recruiter list. You can't use, for example, Visit and Connect, because there's literally no icon for Dux-Soup to click. So it's just a limitation, unfortunately, of the Recruiter platform. You can auto visit profiles, but of course there's little point in that from Recruiter, because I think the default setting in Recruiter is that you visit profiles anonymously, so they don't get the notification. It's one of the benefits of Recruiter, of course, that you can look at profiles without people knowing that you're looking at them. But yeah, you can enroll profiles directly from Recruiter. You have that enroll option. And then what actually happens is that the mechanism is that Dux-Soup finds the LinkedIn URL and it sends the connection request via regular LinkedIn then when you queue that up through your campaigns. It is just unfortunate, one of the limitations of the Recruiter platform.
Okay, thanks, Giles. And must I be a member of a group to make connection requests to those members?
If you've only got regular LinkedIn, yes. If you've got Sales Navigator, no. I'll just show you this one quickly, because I always think this is one that people aren't aware of. If I go to, for example, all those pop-ups again. If I go to, yeah, let's go lead filters here. So I am, for example, not a member of, I don't know, let's think of market research professionals. I'm not a member of this group, but because I've got Sales Navigator, I can see that there are 94,000 people who are a member of this group. So if I'm even though I'm not a member of this group, here in Sales Navigator, for a paid Sales Navigator account, I can search that group, and I could, for example, I don't know, let's narrow it down to I don't know, people who live or who are located there. So I can see 17 people who are based in Breda, parts of the Market Research Professionals group. I'm not a member of that group, but I can see the people who are. I can only do that if I've got Sales Navigator. If you're not a member of a group and you're in regular LinkedIn, you have to become a member of that group to see the population.
Okay. I don't know how long we've got. We've still got a few questions here, Giles, actually.
Okay, that's all right. Let's rattle through as many as we can. Hopefully it's useful to people anyway.
How could I use Turbo to invite people to a webinar after they express interest? So I guess you'd have to build that list, wouldn't you? They'd have to express interest on LinkedIn, and then you'd have to visit those profiles.
You need to visit those profiles or scan the list if you've got a list of people. Use Dux-Soup to scan that list or auto visit them, get their LinkedIn URLs and then create a custom list would be my recommended way of doing it. And then create, if depends on whether they're connected with you or not, as to whether they need a connection request or not. Yeah, without going through the exact levels of connectivity with those people, if they've expressed an interest, but are they connected to you or not? If they're not connected to you, you need a connection request to go to them. But of course, you could put the LinkedIn, sorry, you could put the URL to the webinar in your messaging. And that's where using, for example, tiny URL, that kind of thing, you can create a very condensed URL to send to people. That's brilliant for messaging, even in connection requests. That can be incredibly useful if people have that requirement. Yeah, create your custom list, create a list somehow. Maybe put everything into a lead. Everybody who expressed an interest, you put them into a lead list, for example, in Sales Navigator. And then from the lead list, you then create a campaign with an optional connection request message. Say, hey, you expressed an interest in blah, blah, blah. Connect with me and I'll send you further details. And then your follow-up messages, of course, then contain all of the further details around the webinar. That's how I would do it, probably.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Giles. Can I send direct messages to second and third degree connections as well?
In order to send direct messages to second and third degree connections, you need to use in-mails. I touched on that very briefly earlier around sending in-mails, sending direct messages to those people. Yeah, you'll need a paid account. The only alternative, if you've got a free LinkedIn account, is to send them a connection request message. And if I just show you, where was it? This one here. This is the blog post here around the in-mails. So yeah, we did the webinar in May, and the blog post was published in June. This, it goes through what an in-mail is, how you can use in-mail credits, and how you can use Dux-Soup to extend the possibilities for in-mails, should we say. But yeah, that's how you would reach out to non-first degree connections if you don't want to send them a connection request message.
I've just posted that in the chat as well, so everyone should get that. Quick one here. When your computer goes into snooze, does Dux-Soup still do its job and go inactive, or do you need to have your computer live?
Your computer needs to be live. Dux-Soup literally needs to mimic the clicks of the mouse, and Chrome needs to be open. So if you've minimized Chrome to the bottom of your screen, Dux-Soup will snooze. If your computer goes into snooze mode, currently, the situation is that Dux-Soup goes into snooze mode too, because nothing's happening on the screen. If you joined the webinar at the start of the year, you will have heard that we talked about a possibility of moving into a cloud-based version. So maybe later on this year, we'll be looking at the possibility to run this a cloud-based version. The alternative is that you run this maybe on a dedicated alternative device, maybe a Chromebook or a Raspberry Pi or something else that you can leave in all the time, or you use a VPS, a virtual private server, which is on 24/7, and you can just leave it running some sort of headless system that you can occasionally log into and enroll a bunch more profiles into. But if you're running Dux-Soup in your browser on your local device, your device needs to be awake.
Perfect. Now, we did have a question about someone asking how you might monitor connection requests and your activity. So kind of coming onto the Dux Dash and where you can see that information.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things you need to be aware of. So one of them is, of course, you can see in LinkedIn, the only place that you can go to in LinkedIn, a few of you sent connection requests, excellent. If you want to see what connection requests you have sent out, you can go to here, and hopefully this will work. There we go. We can go here and we can see all of our sent invites. This is the only place that you can see that in LinkedIn. Of course, anything that you've sent out in the past will be listed here, and I've got 300 and something outstanding at the moment. It's from some campaigns I've been using for testing. There you are. You can see my connection request. I see you have an interest in growth hacking. So here you can go to see how many outstanding connection requests you've got. If you're wanting to monitor the success or otherwise of your campaigns, you can go into the funnel flow here under the Dux Dash. And just to show you again, we click on our Dux-Soup icon, we go to the Dux Dash down here in the bottom right-hand corner, and then we go to our funnel flow over here. And then from here, you select whichever campaign. So if I take this example here, we can see here, this is an example of a campaign that I've been running over the last week or so. So in the last 7 days, I've sent out 110 invites. We can see here how many accepted I've got. I'm yet to send out a follow-up. That's how long I'm giving between my activities here. But we can see here, you know, for example, my connection request acceptance rate here. And Dux-Soup is monitoring all of this for you. and populating this data for you. Remember, you can always click on each of these blocks here to see who has responded or who you sent follow-ups to, and you can even copy this data into a spreadsheet if you want to as well.
Okay, quick point, can we talk about the pipe drive integration today, or is that a bit of a bigger topic?
Go on, let's do it quickly. Oh, do you want me to just generally?
Yeah, I just want you to talk about it, I guess, and see what it does.
Okay. I'm not sure if I'm logged into pipe drive. Let's see if I am. Let's see if I'm still logged into pipe. I am. There we go. Okay, so pipe drive integration. Yeah, why not? If we go to our Dux dash, we go down the left-hand side here. You'll see here CRM connections. What we see here is we have a bunch of different integrations here. These are our direct integrations that we currently support. We've got the HubSpot one, we've got a SharpSpring one, and we've got pipe drive. When you install the connector, as we call it, you have Dux-Soup creates a bunch of new fields in pipe drive, which enables us to be able to bring data across and hopefully minimize the risk of duplicates being created. When you first do it, it always creates duplicates because we don't want to overwrite data that you've already got in pipe drive. From within the connector here, you get various options as to which profiles you want to end up in pipe drive. So in my case here, I'm only interested in people who are connected. So I'm only interested in people who have first-degree connections appearing in my pipe drive account. And then you have got some options here about, for example, messages, whether you want those to appear in pipe drive as well, et cetera, et cetera. Once you've done that and you've enabled it all then basically happens seamlessly. But only profiles that Dux-Soup visits, only profiles that you visit in LinkedIn that Dux-Soup will identify, and then those people will appear then here in your pipe drive account. If I click on my contacts here, what we should see is that we should see a few updates from hopefully earlier today. I didn't check this earlier. Yeah, we got something earlier today. So we've got here a bunch of new connections that have accepted my connection request in the last, where we saw my campaign that had been running. So we can see here the 20th and the 21st, a bunch of people who accepted my connection request. They've gone from being second and third degree connections in LinkedIn to being first degree connections. We can see here over to the right, my LinkedIn degree, LinkedIn ID, and other bits and pieces there. We can then see all of the data relating to those people. And if I've had message exchanges as well, I'd also see those messages in here as well against those people as activities. If we take my colleague, Jin, for example, just to show you how the messages look, we look at the person here, we can see the information here regarding there, and then we can see here my message exchanges with Jin there. So yeah, you have all of these possibilities. Install the connector. You need to have admin rights in your pipe drive account at the moment that you install it, so that Dux-Soup can create these. So the API, through the API, we can create these new fields, the LinkedIn title, LinkedIn ID, et cetera, et cetera. We also have the tags and the Dux-Soup notes as well come across. So you've got lots and lots of different things there that you can see. And similarly, you also get notifications through your activities here. So new connections or incoming messages, that all then appears here. So we can see here some new messages that are coming through. Yeah, that's how the pipe drive integration works. Have a look at our blog posts because there's lots more information there, and the support portal. And if you've got any questions regarding more details around that, yeah, email our support team and they'll be happy to support where they can.
Thank you, Giles. I think we still do have some more questions, and I think they'll keep coming in. So I think any further questions we might have to run through our support team, as Giles has said.
Or ping them to me. That's also fine. I'll liaise with the support team, and we'll make sure that we answer them all in due course.
Perfect. Well, listen, I'm going to wrap up if you're happy, Giles, if you're done, or are you going to talk about the next one?
We just need to mention in 2 weeks' time, we've got Gurav joining us. He joined us, I think it was last year. he did a webinar for us. Isn't that dreadful? I've got an awful memory. So no, here we have Gaurav is joining us about talking through about the sales outreach strategy and how you can take that forward. He's been a real advocate of Dux-Soup and has been using it for a long time. I've spoken to him many times, and Joe, I know, has been working alongside him in preparing this webinar. So do register now. It's already on the website for this webinar, which is coming in 2 weeks. And I've just got to advertise, if you want to book a booster or a technical session with myself to go through what you're trying to achieve, try and join the dots up for you, whether that's getting started with Dux-Soup and you want a booster session, or whether it's something more technical, you're looking at webhooks, or you're looking at an integration, or you're looking at Zapier or Make, book a technical session, and we'll do our best to support you through whatever process you're trying to build. And that's everything from me. I'll pass back to Beth.
So just to say thank you everyone for joining us. Giles, thank you for joining us from your holiday, and enjoy the rest of it, and hopefully we'll see you all in a couple of weeks' time. Bye everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.